today's session titled Learning Stations, Creating an Inclusive TK Program that is Meaningful for All Students, presented by Adie Buchinsky and Alisha Crowe. My name is Mike Cruz, Program Support Specialist with Supporting Inclusive Practices, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this breakout session. Joining me as co-moderator is Juliet Anyanwu. First, a few logistics. This session will be recorded and archived on the conference agenda page after the conference for 1 month. Closed captioning is also available by clicking on the CC button on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. The interpretation icon in the same area will provide access to Spanish translation. We will also ensure that the ASL interpreter are highlighted along with the PowerPoint and presenter. Please make sure your volume is muted to avoid background distractions while presenters are speaking. We also encourage you to engage with others in the chat. When possible, keep your camera on so we can see your beautiful faces. And with that, Adie and Alisha, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for hopping on our Zoom today. Before we get started, we'll just give a little bit of background about ourselves. My name is Alisha Crowe, and I've been teaching for 12 years. I've been at my current school, CHIME, for the last 8 years, where I taught 4th grade for 5 years, and I've been in our TK program for the last 3.
Hi, I'm Adie Buchinsky. I am one of Alisha's co-teachers. My background is in special education, although I was a general education teacher in Washington, D.C. for 1 year. I was a teacher in New York for 2 years, and I've been in California and at CHIME for the last 13. We are going to present today about a practice we use in our classroom every single day of the entire school year called Learning Stations. And we find that it's a very effective tool to help ensure inclusion on so many different levels. And it's not specific to our age range. You could definitely take it and run with it at any age level. So we'll talk to you about that. So we'll start by giving you a sense of the demographics at our school. We are located in the West San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. We are a school that serves TK through 8th grade students. We have about 740 students enrolled right now. 22% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. 8.6% of our students are English language learners. Our most oftenly spoken languages at home are Hebrew, Spanish, Farsi, and Russian. We have a lot of teachers here to make all of that work. We have 40 general education teachers across the grade levels. We have 12 special education teachers, which looks like 11 and a half classroom positions and a half position that is outside of the classroom supporting the whole team. We have music, drama, art, library, and PE for all students every week. And we have a robust DIS team. We have an occupational therapist, speech pathologist, SLPA, who are all internal. They're here all day, every day. We have a part-time PT and a part-time adapted physical education teacher. We have 1.5 school psychologists and 1 full-time counselor. And everyone on that list, with the exception of the physical therapist, is part of the CHIME staff and is here with us and attends staff meetings and is part of our everyday life. Our physical therapist is someone we contract out because we just have a very small number of minutes for her to provide here.
So a lot of you have seen this graphic before, possibly with just the differences and the things that we think of when we think of inclusion. And this is a big part of what we look at as teachers and staff here at our school in returns to what equality, equity, and justice are. We talk a lot, even as the grades get older. This is a graphic that even our older students reference and really get to know and be familiar with, especially having such a diverse population at our school, really acknowledging the difference between these so that we can really get to know what all the students need and why everyone's getting what they need. And the awesome part about the learning stations that we're going to talk about today is that it really focuses on all of these at the same time. It really talks about everyone benefiting from getting the same support. Everyone, for example, our SLPA and our speech and language and our OT, they all come in and work with all of our students at this time. So it's a really great time for them to come in, and all of our students are getting eyes from our OT and from our speech and language pathologists, and all of them are playing games. So they really benefit from their services, but at the same time, they're getting their service minutes for the students who they need to provide those minutes for. And at the same time, everyone's getting the supports they need. So while we're writing our names, there might be 2 kids that the OT is really helping with learning how to focus with pencil grip. These 2 are really focusing on the letter formation, but at the same time, it just looks like everyone's writing their name. So again, it's kind of that equality. Everyone's getting what they need, but everyone's getting that support that's different that they need. And then the justice aspect of what all 3 all 3 can see the game without supports and accommodations, because we have made it clear for everybody. So everyone in learning stations follows the same structure, uses the same supports, and everyone can access what's being offered during that time.
So we are a fully inclusive school. We do not have a special education classroom. There's no pull-out room. There's no pull-out space for our DIS providers. The only time students are pulled out is for counseling, because it's counseling, or to do their standardized assessments for their IEP. Other than that, our students are together all day, every day, which creates this beautiful community where students authentically see each other for who they are, and they acknowledge that the student sitting next to them might have drastically different needs than they do, but everyone deserves a seat in the classroom, and everyone can get their needs met in that same space. And students are able to build friendships across differences in ways that many of us were not given the opportunity to do when we were growing up in school. To make all that happen, we need an extraordinary amount of collaboration between general and special education co-teachers, but also with our DIS team and all of the support staff at school, so that we make sure the knowledge and the skills to support the kids comes into the room. So the paraprofessionals that work in mine and Alisha's class are certainly not occupational therapy experts or speech pathology experts, but they do know the exact ways to support for students learning the sound, because that's what we need in our class. So they have these pieces of information that come from training from our experts, so that the people in the room know what the students need and how to support them all day long.
So the reason we're here, and hopefully you're all here, is to learn a little bit about what learning stations is. So we're going to dive in a little bit more specific now that we've given you a broader view of where we're coming from and the community that we serve as teachers, and talk a little bit more about this specific element that is a huge part of our TK program, but like Adie said, that can really benefit across all grade levels, not just with little kids. Because I think often we think of, oh, learning stations and centers, that's so cute. Like I remember doing that in kindergarten or first grade. But in reality, especially trying to follow more of the inclusive practice that we do here and moving towards a full inclusion, if that's something your campus is thinking about, really thinking about how this benefits more push-in services that benefits everyone. So our kind of all-encompassing statement about what learning stations is for us is that it's more of an instructional approach that, first of all, leverages student choice. The students are in charge of where they go and what they do, with the exception of teachers calling them to their table when it's, we're pulling a couple kids or as we need them and we're filling our holes. But overall, it's all student choice. And you'll see even student choice as they get a little bit more comfortable with it. You'll have students who, having a really large fine motor output from the beginning is really challenging. So we might start them at the teacher table and then learning, maybe the next teacher called them right when they finish, and they are acknowledging that for them, the stamina that's required to do 2 of those teacher tables. So they're starting to advocate for themselves. So they're starting to say, can I please have 5 minutes to go to a different station and then I'll come to you? And by the end of the school year, you really see students owning who they are as students, advocating for what they need, and then coming to your table successful and ready to go, all with just their own student choice and student voice. Push-in services. So like we said, we have a really robust DIS service team at our school. And the push-in services, I think a lot of people, when they come to our schools especially, they're kind of blown away by, they're like, well, how do they provide their minutes? Like if they don't pull these students out, how are they getting the services that they need? And like Adie hit on, the biggest part is collaboration. So while we have our DIS teams pushing in and running stations, they're running a table, they're doing, a fine motor cutting activity or a gross motor activity outside, or they're practicing a specific sound, or playing a game that hits on several different sounds that students are working on. Also then behind the scenes, we're touching base with them about, when our OT leaves, she's letting us know some of the needs that she's seeing that are overarching in our class. She's tagging and flagging some students that maybe they want us to start thinking about when we're doing anything with requiring a pencil or working on grip. So it really also relies on having those push-in services and allowing them the time to come in and work with all the students and not just the specific students on their caseloads. And available staff and volunteers. So it's not just the teachers, it's our paraprofessionals, it's our special education assistants. We also open it up to have 2 parent volunteers every single day, which we don't always get, and that's okay. But when we do, it's allowing, we've had principals and admin staff come in, we've had parents come in, lots of different people of the community come in. We have middle school volunteers who are doing different times, and they're coming in and running activity outside or helping reinforce the expectation at a fine motor table. So it really takes the whole staff and community and volunteers that are on that campus to create a homogeneous and heterogeneous small group learning activities for all students. So they are not necessarily, sometimes we might be pulling a group and we might be starting with all students who need to work on numbers 0 through 5. But at the same time, that could look like one student is just working on 0, 1, 2. Some students might be working on 5, and then we might just extend it to go to 10 because we see that they're successful. So even though at times it might look like we're grabbing them based off of where they are academically, a lot of the time we're also grouping them and then differentiating within our own table. So it's not always the same thing, and it allows for a lot of differentiation. I know that sometimes in the upper grades, it's a little bit like, oh my gosh, like how would that look? Like, how do you, implement some of those things? And from coming from a 4th grade position, there are so many opportunities. I know myself, with working with our SLIPA and our SLP, they share so many resources. And then it proves that, we actually have a student who would really benefit from just having a, low stakes, really fun opportunity to connect with peers. So they're coming into that group and working at the beginning. And these students maybe need more extension and application work after a whole group, and these students would really benefit from repeating with maybe the teacher or a para, and these students can work independently and then putting games and more application-based activities. So again, it's something that doesn't just have to be specific to TK, but something that can go far above and beyond to other grade levels.
So at this point, you're all sold. You love learning stations. You want to do it. You just need to know how. So that's what we're going to talk about now. We have this magical chart, the learning station chart. It is up in our classroom every day. And this is how students make that choice that Alisha was talking about. So you can see we have big blocks with little spots for students. So some of our tables have 6 available spots for kids. You can see Miss Jutras there has 6 available spots. Miss Crowe has 6 available spots. And then you can also see we have some larger play areas that have 4 spots and some smaller play areas that have 2 spots. You can see Miss Justine, who's our SLIPA, was there that day. And the students get in a line. When they finish their learning station, they find their little picture, they pick it up, and they move it anywhere that has an open spot. So that way it's not complete chaos and we don't have 15 kids at dramatic play. We have a contained number of kids and we can designate what that is and shift as the year goes on. And the kids get to choose. The choice is completely open to them. unless a teacher calls them. So we do have some students who will perpetually avoid the teacher tasks. We have a student checklist with us at the table, and we check off who's come and done the math activity. And we make sure that everyone gets there. So at a certain point, we might say, Alisha, come to my table. And they get in the line and they have to move their picture to that spot. That way we make sure all the students accomplish what they need to. And sometimes our checklist looks like all of the kids need to come and do the activity. And it's the same activity for all students. Sometimes it looks like the kids all come and do a math activity, but the math activity is differentiated. So when they come, they get the leveled materials that are appropriate for them. And sometimes our checklist is based off our student assessment. So we will tell the kids we're doing rhyming activities today. And we have our differentiated list, and we know these kids are working on identifying rhymes, these kids are working on producing rhymes, and these kids are maybe working on sentences composed using rhymes. So because the activities are so different, we will call them in groups that are homogeneous. And so that checklist, and we might have kids who don't need to do rhyming work at all. So they're not going to get called that day. And we have our cross-checking system. So the co-teaching works, not just myself as the SPED teacher and Alisha, my gen ed counterpart, but you can see Miss Jutras, who's our other gen ed counterpart, is co-teaching with Miss Crowe. And so we all know all the kids. The kids aren't only known by the one general education teacher to whose class they are assigned. It allows the students to have lots of different people. And sometimes a kid is feeling really connected to one person or another. We just left learning stations today, and one of our students who's impacted by a lot of social emotional needs was feeling stressed about how many teacher tables there are today. And I was able to say to her, Miss Andrea and Miss Jutras are doing the same table, the same activity. Who do you want to do it with? And so she was able to choose the adult that she felt safest with at that moment, because she knows all the adults and can work with them. And this is how we provide an opportunity for our SLIPA, Miss Justine. The kids at her table are definitely stacked a little bit for the kids on her caseload or the kids that we're concerned about, but she gets to cycle through and see all the students. And it's helped us a lot. We've had a lot of emails this year where a parent is concerned about a student's articulation, or we're concerned. And because the student has repeated access on a weekly basis to the speech team, they were able to jump right in, answer the parent email, very specifically address concerns in an RTI way that's not available in other settings where students are pulled out of the classroom. And we as the staff also get to observe how Miss Justine is working with students, and all of those strategies trickle out into our brains so that we can replicate them when she leaves. So this is our chart. You could certainly, for older students, make a digital version or remove the pictures. Obviously, the visuals are very important for the students in our age range because they're not all reading quite yet. And we did a lot of teaching about the chart, a lot of rule setting. You can't touch someone else's picture because there was a lot of, I'm going to move my friend out and put myself in. So we had to do a lot of limit setting around that. I saw someone in the chat ask how many kids. We currently have 46 kids, 2 gen ed teachers and 1 special education teacher is the staff that we have for those kids, although we are expanding for next year, expanding our program. But we've done this same chart when we were a 1-class program, and we're planning to do the same chart as we grow into a 3-class program. And like I said, you could adjust the chart to visually look different and to have the students interact with the chart in different ways. But essentially, we define how many people can go to a spot, and the kids can choose, with the exception of us saying, it's time to go to a teacher table. And sometimes kids want to be at teacher tables the whole time because they feel safe there. And sometimes kids are just not ready for academics today, and they just need their hands in the sensory bin and doing all that stuff. And that's okay. And we'll catch them next week. We often have stations run multiple days. because we're getting deep in there with the kids and we're not able to see all the kids in one day, but it's okay because we know who came yesterday. And so we know who's going to come today, and we just keep track of that.
And the great news is too, is that these tables are not time limited or time sensitive. So when, you know, a student sitting down, there is no rush to feel like you need to get something done. And sometimes like a lot of our play tables and even our teacher stations stay for a day or two. So they don't disappear. And the students have a lot less of that time obligation and the feeling of being crunched for time. And they know that they can come and it'll be there. And I know that someone asked about if our SLP is or our SLPA is there every day. They're not. We usually have a schedule that we kind of talk to at the beginning of the year. So our OT comes on Wednesdays, our SLP comes Thursdays, our SLPA comes Fridays. But again, that's also very, you know, when it works, we do have a good chunk of IEPs with our student population here. So sometimes it's, hey, you know what, I have an IEP this day. Can I come on Tuesday? And because of the flexibility of our tables and things moving, we have a lot more freedom to be, oh yeah, come on Tuesday or come on Wednesday, or both of you can come Friday. So it allows for a lot more of the freedom and the space to have things change. And when things change, it doesn't feel like it's making a major difference because it is so flexible from the beginning. And there's even like, you'll see the stop signs that are on the learning station chart. Sometimes, you know, that teacher table might go down to 4 people just based on the demand. Sometimes that's just the number or the space that we have. And other times it's more of a reflection of our PBS and our community. You know, we just started using restorative justice and responsive classroom. And so we can slowly open up areas. It's a really great way to slowly introduce spaces in your classroom, slowly introduce materials in the classroom. And we would use like our morning meeting time to talk about expectations and how does it look. And then again, with the student choice-based aspect of it, that it eventually turns into them going, oh my gosh, we did a terrible job cleaning up today. The table's a mess. I think we need to shut it down. Or, for example, we just got dramatic play back. And so we started the week off with only 2 spots. And then on this chart, you can see there's only 3. So we can slowly roll out the station. Or if you see spaces need to get smaller because it's getting a little too rowdy, you can also reduce the spaces. So it's a little bit more flexible in that aspect too.
And just to add on to what you said about the SLPA, SLP, and OT staffing, that's based on the service minutes that we have right now and the level of need and the RTI need. So we have speech essentially in the room twice a week and OT once a week because that's the demand of this current caseload. As we look forward to our caseload for next year, we've already talked with the speech team about, you know, I think you might need to be in there 3 days a week based on the student needs. So that could shift and change. It just depends on, you know, we'd love them in there absolutely every single day, but we also know they have other students on their caseload in other classrooms that need to be seen.
So these are just, we've kind of talked a little bit about it, but skills that we can target during learning stations and what we focus on right now. We do academic skills, literacy skills, differentiating, you know, again, writing sentences, writing paragraphs, maybe just forming more details. You can kind of differentiate in that way. Math skills, writing, students who need more scaffolding and support with writing versus students who maybe just need more of a teacher edit and check when they're done. Language development, doing RTIC practice, pragmatics, solving all of those different things with just, and a lot of it lends itself to happening even if you're at a, you know, fun activity table with a teacher. We can turn that game time into doing some articulation practice or some pragmatics. Fine motor, such as hand strengthening, pre-writing skills, handwriting without tears is what we use right now in our program in the like winter into spring. So that we typically focus on hand strengthening and pre-writing at the beginning and then phase into those skills. So again, upper grades, what a great opportunity to, you know, have a multiplication activity out. And so maybe the first couple groups you're practicing might look a little bit different because they're students who really need to just focus on, you know, the first, like the 1s and 2s. You're just practicing on those basic skills and those starter facts, where then maybe some groups you're working on mixed facts and you're doing 0 through 12. And some maybe you're doing double-digit multiplication. So as you call students, or depending on the tables you have out, they can choose those activities to challenge themselves. Gross motor development, we also do things outside the classroom on the yard. So in the middle of our chart, there was another paraprofessional, and students could go outside on the yard. We might be doing chalk. We might be doing a art activity with easels outside. So also just using more space other than just what's in your classroom, but do you have space outside your classroom? Do you have, areas that aren't being utilized that you could utilize at that time, which then also makes it feel a lot more spread out, a little bit more calm in the space, and you're getting a lot more targeted instruction with students. Social skills, problem solving, sharing, maintaining classroom spaces, and different tactile experiences.
And this is based on our standards. So we know if you're in 4th grade, this is not what it's going to look like. You're going to have academics and activities that reflect the 4th grade standards. So you can certainly take the format and do anything with it. What we want you to know is that we do everything within our curriculum through this pathway. This is definitely our heaviest instructional block. It's an hour and a half every single school day. So we invest a lot of time in it, and we get a lot of return for that time too. So we have to teach the students learning stations and the whole process, and we're able to teach it to kids who are just turning 4 years old. So we promise you can teach it to any age of students. And the way that we unroll it at the beginning of the year is we start with that responsive classroom approach to talking about the room. What does the room look like right now? Where are all of the supplies? What does the floor look like? How are the chairs positioned? How should it look when we're done? And we go through very slowly and talk about all of that. Then we run learning stations with 0 teacher tables. It only has play-based tables, and the teachers are stationed around to help the students learn the expectations. So we have one teacher at the chart, and that teacher is supporting the students in picking only their picture, moving it to the right spot, making a choice in a timely manner, teaching the students who are lined up how we line up and wait patiently without poking each other and climbing on each other. And we have people around the room saying, oh, it looks like you want to change your learning station, but it still seems like there's a mess here. Let's figure out that problem, and really helping them understand. Then we start slowly introducing one teacher table at a time and phasing out the adults who are scattered to help and support. And then we're in full learning station mode. And it's rolled out differently every year that we've done it. This is my 6th year doing learning stations, and it's gone differently every year. We have some groups that have needed a person sitting at the chart for a very long time. We had a group that needed someone at the chart for a week every time we came back from vacation. They just needed that reminder about how we use the chart. And this year the students were exceptional. They just dove in. It made a lot of sense to them. They were craving that choice. They were craving the access to all the fun things in the classroom. They wanted to see it. It was a very fast rollout. So it just depends, but we spend the time investing in making sure the students understand the expectations. And now at the end of learning stations, it's spotless. The kids get up and they clean and they know where the Legos go, and they're packing things up and they're putting things away. And it just in a matter of 5 minutes, 46 kids are running all over the place and the room is perfect and clean. And like Alisha said, in the moments where it's not, we meet as a community and we discuss what that means. And the kids are really good now about saying to us, oh my goodness, you have to shut down sensory for tomorrow. It is not clean at all. We did a bad job as a community. And they hold each other accountable for that. So definitely rolling it out in a purposeful way is important. And because we invested, for this group, we invested a week in this whole process. I think it took them this year. And every single day it runs itself. And if you walk into our classrooms, there are 46 4- and 5-year-olds who are actively engaged in some task that is purposeful for their learning. And we've done a lot of differentiation. So it's definitely worth the time investment.
Mhm.
And if we can do it with 4-year-olds, then we're certain you can do it with any age group.
And I think sometimes the thing we hear the most is like, wow, aren't you so lucky to have, some paraprofessionals and an assistant and a sped teacher. And, you're so into having these push-in models with your DIS teams. It also like, I'm thinking, especially in the upper grades, what a great leadership opportunity. What a great opportunity to take some of the students who finish in like 5 seconds and they're like, what can I do now? And you're like, why don't you go run an errand? Or you're trying to find things for that student. What a wonderful extension opportunity to maybe even challenge students to go, you know what? I feel like you're really grasping this concept. Do you want to plan an activity or can I give you an activity to do? And those tables don't have to be teachers and paraprofessionals. They can be their peers. You can have a peer who maybe shows those leadership qualities and really wants to kind of take on that teacher role in a way. I used to call them my teaching team, but giving them a chance to run a table. Because I think a lot of the times what we hear, at least from our own upper grades going, that'd be so wonderful. But, my 2 paras are supporting students with pretty significant needs. And the idea of them trying to walk away to run a station might be really challenging. But they all tend to have some of the students who they can think about pretty quickly who could be successful running a table or just an activity or a game and kind of monitoring students' success.
So who staffs learning stations? Anyone who's in our room between 10 o'clock and 11:30 gets tasked with running a learning station. So it's always the 3 teachers on our team, our paraprofessionals who are with us every day and our assistant. All of us are at tables every day. Every week, based on the student need we have this year, we have our occupational therapist, our speech therapist, and our SLPA. We have our 8th grade volunteers who come in once a week for learning stations. That's their elective that they do. And the kids love when they get to hang out with Mr. Ayala and Mr. Christopher. It's just such a highlight for them to have that connection. Like Alisha had said before, we have an opportunity for parents to sign up and volunteer. There have been years where we had parents, fighting each other to get on the sign up list as fast as possible. This year we've had minimal parent volunteers, and it's okay. It runs well either way. We partner with California State University Northridge. So a lot of times they'll send fieldwork students or volunteer students who are just trying to understand working with kids and get some experience, and we'll send them on in and give them a learning station. And certainly those folks aren't going to have the high academic ones. We're not telling parent volunteers, we're not giving them the leveled lists of who's working on which skill. That wouldn't be appropriate. But they're able to do some of the fine motor activities, or they're able to play a structured game or do some science work with the kids. So really anyone who's there gets signed up for learning stations, and you jump right in and do it. That's how we staff it.
So just overarching instructional benefits from doing learning stations is that all students are receiving small group instruction from highly qualified professionals in different groupings. And that's kind of the best part about it, is that we all, I think, as educators and people who work with students, really see the benefits of having that small group instruction and being able to differentiate in so many different ways. And this really allows the time to do that every single day. And like we said, with this being the largest chunk of our day for an hour and a half, and sometimes just getting, I'm going to teach this math lesson for 2 days because I'm going to take the time to really take all the groups and give that instruction in a different way. Really allows for a little bit more time to kind of see where students are, or to reteach a lesson. And also not being limited on time, not feeling like you have that 45 minutes to squeeze in a full lesson and provide all this, whole group instruction, and, maybe managing a student's, behavior chart and trying to do all those different elements. You're able to do that, but in a smaller group, which often tends to allow students to be more successful overall. Students have an opportunity to engage in a variety of the curriculum activities throughout with being choice-based. So like Adie said, they, today, for example, they went and talked about the person of the week that we've been studying for the week, Pedro Flores. So 2 teachers were reflecting on their learning from the week. They were doing an illustration and sharing the facts that they've learned about that person. And myself and the Slippo were coloring and making yo-yos because that's Pedro Flores contributed to the yo-yo craze. So the kids were getting to make yo-yos. And while our Slippo was doing that, she was just having and leading casual conversation. And as those students come in, she's familiar with what they need and just focusing on hitting those target goals while they're talking and really just keeping an eye on all the students, but in a really fun activity, along with lots of play centers and different activities. And then just effective use of the adults. If you do have a lot of people in your classroom, which sometimes can be the case here at CHIME, you're like, oh, I see there are 5 adults in this classroom and I see the teacher teaching and a lot of people in the back just hanging out. So it's a really great way to just really leverage everyone and put them more in leadership roles. And for us, with the students getting to look at all of the adults in those classrooms as educators, what an educator is looks different for all of us. We're not all the same. Even today, our paraprofessional who's going to school right now created a lesson and was running her own lesson outside. So she kind of took that on herself and along with her class and getting to create things and really do it with students she's familiar with and kind of encourage her into that educational role and allow her to take the teaching lead and teach her own table and do things like that. So just really letting the different staff members' knowledge and their passions. Sometimes, I might be doing handwriting a lot because I'm really passionate about handwriting, but maybe I'm not as passionate about math. And so maybe that's what Adie is going to take. So we also tend to, as educators, find the things that we are more passionate about. And while we may still do everything, we often can go to the things that we feel really awesome about and what we can really help with and take that on.
So we are going to stop talking and we are going to have you all open up this QR code and investigate all of our tools. We want to make it extremely easy for you to take learning stations into your classroom. We have some videos about the process, how we set up learning stations in the morning and decide which students are where. We have video of learning stations in action. We wish you could all come visit us at school, but we took video in case. We have some tools that you can just edit and print out to get your own learning station chart set up. So we want to leave time for you to do all of that. I see the question about the timing of learning stations. We do not have a set time for stations. That's a huge piece of the process and what differentiates it from centers. And we find that it really works, particularly on the academics, where some kids come, they got it, they showed you, move on. And some kids need to practice a little bit more. We love it when we're doing a longer writing project. Some kids get one sentence done and that's their capacity for today. And tomorrow they'll come and do another sentence. And some kids just get deep into it and they want to stay for 45 minutes and write all of their sentences. And that's great too. Brains work in different ways, and this allows that to happen. When we have our service providers doing push-in service, there are kids that will do a couple rounds of the game with them and move on. And there are kids that they're like, you're going to stay a little bit more. We're having so much fun. Stay with me and play for a little longer, because those kids need more intervention than the other students. So that's what we love about it. Certainly there are times we have to say to a kid, you've been at cars for 45 minutes and other people want to do cars today, and give your brain a chance to try something else. And we'll help them with that. But for the most part, it's totally open-ended on the timing.
Mm-hmm. And I see someone asked if we can do a direct link to the drive that it's in.
I can work on that. Yeah,
we can do that. So with that, please stay in touch. We are not shy with emails and sharing any of this. So if you perhaps didn't scan it or the links again, please reach out. These are our emails. So you're welcome to reach out to us anytime if you would love for us to speak to others about this, or if you want to get more resources, or you have detailed questions or anything like that. We're more than happy to talk with any of you in getting this set up, or how we would envision this in other places or other grade levels. And that's all we have for you.
I just put the link in the chat if you want to just directly go there. We're certainly not kicking you off. We know that the session is slotted for more time, and we wanted to leave it open to you to ask questions, to peruse the materials, and anything like that.
Yeah.
And you know how to find us in the future. Thank you for all the lovely
Yeah,
feedback.
thanks.
Yes, please feel free to, ask questions. We still have, a few minutes before we go to lunch. But I love all your comments, and thank you, Adie and Alisha, and thank you to everyone in attendance for your allyship to our students with disabilities and their families. It is our mission to grow our educational system, to innovate, include, and impact outcomes positively for all, from birth to adulthood and beyond. All of this presentation slides and resources can be accessed in the session description section on the VFairs agenda page. Next on the agenda is lunch. So make sure to refuel, refresh, and network with other inclusion allies and accomplices in the social lounge. There is an optional roundtable discussion with several topics if you wish to participate. And by the end of the day today, please complete the conference survey that will provide us feedback to make this conference better for next year. And also connect in the social lounge with like-minded attendees and post on social media using the hashtag CIPCon 2023. Thank you all, and see you in the afternoon session.